to another edition of Up Close and Personal, and today is part 2 with author Jim Cleveland from Bristol, Connecticut. His book is Stories of a Lifetime, which has just come out, and I'm going to read a little bit from the back, which really does encapsulate beautifully Jim's lifelong residency of Bristol, worn many hats throughout his life: sailor, entrepreneur, deep sea fisherman, business owner. He's a veteran, beloved father, husband, grandfather, great-grandfather, as well as cherished friend to many. And I can attest to that. I had the pleasure of working for Jim and his family for Bristol Construction, which was a very busy place for many, many years. And you did a lot of road work.
Yes, we did.
When I was there, of course, Harry was working with you, your son Harry, who is named after Harry Stone, which I learned from the book. So welcome, Jim, and welcome to our viewers for part 2. So let's go back to the construction company a little bit more. How many years were you in business?
How many years? Went in business in 1954.
Okay.
So October 10th, 1954.
And tell us about Tate Barrett, who happens to be an uncle of mine.
Isn't that something?
Isn't that something?
Tate Barrett was a farmer. He's only one of 2 farmers that produced grade A milk at the time. And honest, straight shooter, good guy, hard worker, and I wound up doing some work for him. I had bought an old 1923 Caterpillar tractor and put a blade, Cliff Salmon put the blade on and made it, had a wheel that I had with a worm drive that went out over the hood to raise and lower the blade. But anyway, Tate wanted to dig a pond, and he hired me to do it with that old wreck. And I did. I dug the pond for him. But
he believed in you. He believed in you when you needed assistance to make the next jump to get where you needed to be financially. He believed in you.
Tate, you know, when you talk about a gentleman, he was right at the top of the list. You couldn't find anybody any nicer than Tate. And in my book, there's a story about when I had an opportunity to buy a backhoe from a guy that was going bankrupt, and he wanted $10,000 for it, and I said I could only give him 5. I didn't even have 5.
A lot of money back then.
It was tough, and so anyway, I left the guy with an offer of 5 and came home. That was on a Saturday afternoon. And Saturday night, I get a phone call from this guy from up in Massachusetts, and he said, if you can be at my office Monday morning with a check for $5,000, you can have the machine. So I said, I'll be there. I had no idea where I was going to get the $5,000. So I'm thinking, I thought, Tate Barrett just sold his cows. He was going out of the farming business or dairy business. So anyway, I called him. I said, Tate, I need $5,000. Is there any possible chance that I could borrow it from you? And he says, how long you need it for? I said, I don't know, maybe a year. And he said, how much interest? I said, well, the banks are charging 6. And he says, yeah, if you want to come up, please, I'll give it to you. So I went up. Tate Barrett gave me, I don't think I even signed a note with him. I think he just gave me a check for $5,000. And Monday morning, Walt Schultz and I were up there at the guy's place with a tractor trailer, and we bought the machine.
So Jim, tell me about a handshake in business. you're the kind of guy, I learned this from working for you, that a handshake means everything.
That's right. It does.
And so how did that start for you?
It started with Harry Stone. When I was, I think I was 13 years old, I had bought a horse and I kept it at his farm at that time. And after, I don't know, I had it about a year and I was going to sell it. And somebody from Waterbury came over on a Sunday morning and they said they wanted to buy the horse. So I told him I wanted $75. The horse and tack went with it. So, guy's okay, we'll take it. And he starts to write out a check. And Harry Stone says, what are you doing? He said, I'm going to write out a check. Guys, Harry said, we don't know you from Adam. He says, you can't buy it. You got to buy it for cash. The guy said, I don't have that kind of cash. Well, he said, you're not going to buy the horse. And before they got through, he had a car full of people with him, and they come up with $75. And Harry said, you know, he says, you can't trust anybody on a check. You got to have the cash if you don't know them.
Right.
If you know them, that's another story. So that was.
I mean, the handshake was your word. And
Pardon?
a handshake was your word.
Absolutely.
And when you gave somebody your word that
Yeah.
you were going to do something, even if it wasn't financially based, if you said, okay, Joni, I'm going to do this,
Yeah.
and we shook hands on it, that you were going to deliver.
That was it.
That was it.
Yeah.
And how do you think business has changed from that?
You certainly can't do it on. Well, you can't even do it when you have all the legal papers. You know, then somebody does something wrong, and then you got to hire a lawyer to get you out of a jam that you weren't even involved in.
Yeah.
But the integrity of business people today has been shattered, in my opinion.
Because of?
Pardon?
What is the reason?
Their word is no. They don't believe in themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's got to come from within.
If they can if somebody can do somebody out of something, they're going to do it.
They're going to try. And that's sad.
Never forget, there was a guy in Bristol who had an old saying, there's a sucker born every minute and two to catch him. And how true it was.
Mm-hmm. So you did a lot of state work. Bristol Construction did a lot of state work. And for those viewers who don't understand what that means, give us a little summary of what having a state job means versus not having a state job.
Well, when we didn't have a state, before we started with any state work, the salaries or hourly wages of these guys was not much, because I couldn't pay much because I couldn't charge much to get to work. So when we went to bid on the boulevard in Bristol, that was the first big job that we come in contact with. But yet they paid scale wages and scale union wages. And of course we didn't belong to the union. So I talked to the guys and I said, you know, what do you think about our bidding this job for the city of Bristol? If we get it, you're going to get scale wages on that job, but I can't pay those wages on the other work that we do. No, that's okay. Let's go for it, you know. So they were all behind me, and we bid the job, and got it. And Innes Brothers and Thomaston was the second bidder, but they were well known, and we were just up and coming. But anyway, we wound up getting a job, and we did it. And that was the beginning of our blossoming out into a
reliable for the state job. So
Right.
when you have a state job, you have to go through the bidding process,
Right.
and then your employees everybody on the job gets paid a higher wage, whatever wage is set for the job. So it's nice. The employees like it. And not every job can be a state job. And there's a lot of responsibility. The state gives you certain benchmarks that you have to hit along the way, and all the inspections and all of that. And you did a lot of road work. And the guys that were with you, like the Schultz brothers and Charlie Bunn and
Iggy Gillette.
Iggy, yes, Iggy Gillette. The guys that were there, I think Lori Ventrilo.
Lori Verillo.
Verillo. I thought it was Ventrilo. Yes, hardworking girl.
Yeah,
worked as a laborer, and then you know, those folks. And I think of Rick, who was in the garage. You know, machine would come in and he'd have to fix it, make sure that that machine could go back out, because if you had a machine in the garage, you're not making money off of that machine. You know, you had to lead that crew and you had to keep their spirits up, and they really helped you build that business.
Was Tom Brighter with us when you were?
He was. Hard-working guy.
What a guy.
Yeah.
Hard, honest.
Yep.
Dependable.
Yep.
Yeah,
you started early in the morning too.
Yes, yeah, they did.
Early in the morning, and you'd quit. And then being in a family business too, you know, when you go to work and you're working hard and you go home at the end of the day, it's like, oh, okay, I left. But when you're in a family business, you go home at the end of the day, everybody goes with you.
That's right.
You know, it's a different way of having to do business too.
Yeah.
So tell us about Buffalo, because some people may remember that in Bristol we had Buffalo.
That's right.
And I wonder how that happened.
Well, we had a fellow working for us that also worked for the outfit in Goshen that had Comerford, had exotic animals. Well, anyway, but he took a layoff slip in the wintertime, so he called me from Lebanon, Missouri. He said, Bob Delkey, his name was, and he said, you know, he said, they got some beautiful buffalo calves down here. He said, I wondered if you're interested. And I said, you know what, it sounds, yeah, I mean, get me 2 females and a male. So.
Did you know anything about buffalo?
No, nothing. Nothing at all.
That's what I mean about Moxie.
So, but I thought of what the American people did to the buffalo herds, and I just had in my mind I'd like to know more about them. So, anyway, on December 31st, 1979, this truck comes in the yard with a trailer and pulled up, and my wife and daughter were there, and we come out and she said, what's he got? And Bob says, I got 3 buffalo for him. And she said to me, you didn't buy these. And I said, yeah. Well, she said, either you're going or I'm going, one or the other, because she said, I'm not putting up with any buffalo. Well,
how many acres did you have?
About 7.
Okay.
And but this is in a community of
houses.
It's a residential community. It was not a farming area.
In the middle of winter.
Yeah.
December
31st.
And they were babies?
They were probably maybe 3 months old. And so anyway, they wouldn't come out of the trailer. They had the gate open. My daughter's got the movie camera ready to take some pictures of them, you know, and they wouldn't come out. And so Bob Dalkey goes, it was an aluminum trailer, he goes up in the front of the trailer and he bangs on the side, and they come out like a bullet.
Shot.
They went out, they went down in the little valley there and up, went right through the fence on the other side.
Oh no.
And then they went up into Chippen's Hill. So that presented a little problem.
Yeah, they had no idea where they were. You had no idea where they were. And there's people that live up there.
we were getting, when they finally had the police department got a hold of it, and it was advertised on the radio, and they also, the Bristol Press had quite a article about it every day. But anyway, the first day, not that day, but the next day, we were able to catch, the story goes that the one woman was sitting up in Terryville in her living room, and her husband was sitting on the couch, and she was facing the window, and she says, "Hey," she said, "a buffalo just went by the window." He said, "What did you have to drink?" He says, "I didn't have the same stuff." She said, "I'm telling you." It turned out the buffalo had, this is right off the green up in the center of Terryville, had gone along the side of their house, and they had a mess of little evergreen trees, and he went through the evergreen trees not knowing that there was a walkout basement, and he dropped down into that, and it had a stockade fence enclosure. So
he was kind of corralled.
yeah, we had it corralled. And Walt Schultz got a lasso, and we got down in there, and he got a lasso on it. And funny thing that happened there was when we went to go out the gate that they had, apparently the buffalo or somebody, because they had about 5 guys trying to contain this animal, and anyway, one of them bumped against the side of the gate, and half of the fence fell down. All the posts were all rotten. So anyway, but we got that one back. That was a male. Unfortunately, found up that we had 2 males and 1 female.
Okay.
So
2 bulls, yeah. And
no.
so as you got them back home, and you go through the process, and you're raising them, and they are having babies.
Yep.
How many did you end up with?
I think we had 14 at the end.
And how were they to raise? Were they?
They were wild.
They were.
They
never got friendly.
They were always wild. I went in with them every day.
You did.
But I
knew you were feeding
never
them.
went in without a fork, a dung fork.
You never did.
Because I used to pick up the dung along the driveway, along the fence. And only one time did one of them act like he wanted to take me. And he got close enough to me so that I touched the tine of the fork on the end of his, no more than I'm touching my own nose. And he backed off.
Okay.
And that was the last of him.
But they were never coming up to the fence for an apple or...
Oh, they'd kill for an apple.
Oh, they'd kill for an apple.
They'd kill any one of them, any male or female.
So there's a funny story in the book. We won't tell you because, we want people to read the book about apples in the buffalo when you finally got to go see them. But we've only got about 5 minutes left, and I did want to touch on the sea fishing. But the buffalo ended, it ended well for the buffalo and for you, because they got to go to a wonderful place when it got to the point where you couldn't take care of them anymore, and they needed to, you found a nice home for them.
Right.
And so that...
But Joni, I need to tell you one quick story.
Tell me.
The one day I came back from work, and a herd buffalo, who at that time, he was probably 7 or 8 years old and big. He weighed over a ton. And when I stood where I never stood next to him, but if I did, I'd have to put my hand up like this to get to the top of his hump. Anyway, I come home from work, he's laying on the ground, kicking his hind feet. And I just kept kicking him, and I'm laying there, and I said, so I called Larry Barrett, who had a farm over on Shrub Road. I said, Larry, I don't know what's wrong with this buffalo. I said, he's laying down kicking his feet. And he said, he's bound up.
Uh-oh.
And he said, you got to get a laxative into him.
Yeah, got to get him up walking.
Now, this animal is wild.
Yeah.
Right? How am I going to get a laxative into a wild buffalo? But in thinking of it, again, Walt Schultz, we decided to build a chute.
Yep.
So we built the chute.
Good idea.
And
how'd you get them up to get them in there?
I put an apple on the ground, put another apple, and another one.
He went.
And the chute, we had it so that it had a wheel on this one end, so it would run over, and we had a block and tackle on it. So anyway, here's the chute like this, and he came in, and then I had a piece of baling string, and I tied an apple onto that up in the air. So
he got
when
up?
he came in, well, he just stuck his head up. After he got the tree on the ground, he reached for that. When he did, we pulled the chute shut, and that locked him in. Larry had a stainless steel spring-loaded gun.
Yep.
And we called him. He came over, and what he had was looked like a big peanut, and that's what the laxative was. So anyway, he's got his head up in the air, so he couldn't put it down. He put the thing in there and shot it, so it got down into him, and then he poured about a half a gallon of water down his mouth.
Yep.
To make sure he wasn't going to cough it up. That took care of it.
That took care of it. People who have never seen large animal veterinarian work, or what you have to do as a farmer, because you can't always get a vet out there.
That's right.
You have to work with your neighbors. You have to be brave. You have to be smart.
Well, we were
safe.
lucky. You know.
Yeah, and it worked.
It worked.
And Jim has some fabulous deep sea fishing stories in here. He went from farm down to the ocean. We don't have time to get into them today, but you became quite the captain, learned a lot from Doc.
Yeah.
Remember Doc?
Yep.
And
bought a couple of boats.
all those stories, and loved going and loved taking your friends with you. And, that's how you were able to pass the time when you felt that the construction business was in good hands with Harry. You were able to do that. And I want to thank you so much for coming in and talking, because it's one thing to read them. It's another thing because when you read them, you get the pictures in your mind.
Yeah.
But when you tell the story, Jim, it's that much more interesting too, because, you can embellish a little bit on it. So I want to thank you for doing that. And for 96 years young, you look great. Those folks who are going to be able to see this are going to be very happy to be able to relive some of Bristol and some of your life. And I want to thank you very much for joining us on Up Close and Personal.
And I am so happy to see you again.
I know, it's great.
So beautiful.
It's great. Thank you.
Believe me.
It's not every day that you can work with someone, my gosh, for many years, and then have the opportunity years later to be able to do this wonderful interview. So from all of us at Nutmeg TV, thank you so much for joining us on Up Close and Personal with Jim Cleveland. We'll see you next time.